Now the second post-apocalyptic film is very different from Air, and it's not a thriller, but it's a drama, and a pretty effective one, even though it is fairly basic. And yeah, it's Z for Zachariah, and I liked it a little bit better than Air. Now Z for Zachariah takes place in a more cliched apocalypse where it's nuclear fallout. The nice thing about it, though, is it's very subtle about the apocalypse, and it really doesn't tell you forthright that it's nuclear fallout. You just figure it out for yourself thanks to what the characters are doing at the beginning of the film. Now in this film, Margot Robbie lives in this forested area that has escaped the reach of nuclear fallout. She's living in this pretty nice place. She's all alone, though. She's in a cabin and she's got a farm. But during the beginning of the film, she comes across Chiwetel. He plays a scientist that has a hazmat suit, and unfortunately he gets in the wrong water and gets really sick. And so Margot Robbie takes care of him, and they live together, and they start blossoming a relationship. But just as that relationship blossoms, in comes Chris Pine, who starts to ruin this relationship, as he seems to start to manipulate the people and try to win over Margot Robbie. So overall, this is a drama that isn't too post-apocalyptic. Yes, its themes and its situations deal with the fact that they're in a post-apocalyptic environment, but the overall story is a conflict of relationship and a love triangle. But I think it's an effective drama, and there's a lot more implications to it. There's a religious theme throughout the movie because Margot Robbie, her father was a pastor. And so they have this little church outside that they need to take down in order to make a water wheel in order to get electricity, because there's this waterfall that is naturally falling and they need to build a water wheel in order to get electricity going because they don't have electricity. And so there is a conflict within Margot Robbie where either to tear down the church that her father had sermons in, or have electricity. Plus Chiwetel is a scientist that doesn't seem to necessarily have any religious beliefs at all. But despite it being a major conflict, it is not an overwhelming and heavy theme throughout the movie. But there is a very subtle, neat approach to this movie. If you really think about it, this film is just a nice retelling of the story of Adam and Eve in a post-apocalyptic setting. Yeah, the forest and the lush place that they're living in is basically Eden on Earth because the whole rest of the world is filled with nuclear fallout. Chiwetel and Margot are basically Adam and Eve because they seem to be the last humans on Earth, or so they believe. But when Chris Pine comes into the picture, he's sort of tempting and manipulating people to the point where it feels like he's definitely the snake. But being this is in a post-apocalyptic setting and it's a retelling, there is a lot of differences between that and the story of Adam and Eve. And thankfully the names are John and Anne, so it's not Adam and Eve. And overall it is definitely a very different ending to the ending of the story of Adam and Eve, which makes sense because God's not in the reference and there is no people that get banished. All three of the acting was really great. I was a little bit more surprised with Margot Robbie because she's a very different character from the other two movies I saw her in. So I was more impressed with her than I was with the two guys, but all three of them did an amazing job. Now, being that this is a drama, it is definitely a lot slower than the previous post-apocalyptic movie. Now, if you're more of a fan of post-apocalyptic movies than straight-up dramas, then you'll probably be disappointed with this film. But overall, I did honestly really enjoy it. I liked the characters. I thought there was a lot of great little backstories throughout. There's a lot of really intense, really good dramatic scenes as well. And so I'm going to give Z for Zachariah 3.5 stars. So, have you seen Z for Zachariah? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. If you haven't, what is your favorite post-apocalyptic film? As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.